A courier rides through the rain toward London. He isn't carrying a letter. He's carrying an interest rate. In Money's Profits, we watch information speed harden into power. Today, I'm covering the first third of the book, the family name and the walled street, Mayer's early trade, Nathan's Manchester years, the Napoleonic choke on commerce, and the birth of logistics as finance, the elector's treasure, and the family compact that made this all hold together. The family name begins with a sign, the red shield, on a house in Frankfurt's Judengasse, zum Rothschild. In an age before street numbers, signs marked identity. The red shield eventually became the family's name and part of its arms. The setting matters. Frankfurt's Judengasse was a walled quarter, Europe's early template for urban confinement. Crowded homes, special taxes, movement permits, marriage caps. And yet, out of this lane came craftsmen, scholars, traders. Goethe could be startled by the energy behind those walls. In that mix of constraint and drive, tight networks replaced missing rights, and trust moved where official permission hesitated. From this street, Meyer Amschel Rothschild builds reputation the old-fashioned way, small, honest trades that reach big patrons. He starts as a coin and curios dealer to aristocratic collectors. The surprising base of the fortune, what one historian calls mail-order antique sales to aristocratic numismatists, isn't glamorous, but it forges the crucial habit. Be the collateral when you can't easily own it. Reliability is the product. The coin is just the vehicle. At 21, Nathan goes to Manchester, industrial England's drumbeat. Mechanized cotton, new print techniques, lower unit costs, and warehouses stacked to the beams. He makes his early money like any hungry factor. Printed cottons and mixed textiles, hustling orders to the continent. But the edge he finds isn't a clever machine. It's working capital design. Nathan prepays mills to lock in lower prices. He gives buyers 90 days from delivery. That stretches the cash cycle to 5 or 6 months. Painful, unless you learn to juggle bills of exchange, discounting, and exchange rate timing between sterling and continental currencies. That's the pivot you've already named perfectly, from cloth cents to credit cents. His ledger becomes a map of time, rather than just a list of cloth. The original Cotton Book, 1801 to 1804, a small volume with pasted fabric swatches and client references, shows how the merchant's eye converts stock into schedules. A marriage into London's Cohen family nudges him to widen the range beyond British textiles, to Indian and Baltic goods, and the mercantile appetite grows. But the real change agent isn't variety, it's velocity. Invoices, bills, couriers, and ships, all timed with nerve. The Napoleonic decrees squeeze the arteries of legal trade. Demand becomes seasonal. Routes shut overnight. Nathan is hit by the intermittent blockade between England and the continent that defined those years, and therefore he has little option but to continue his export business illegally. He becomes, in a blunt phrase, a smuggler. By 1808, he's the man who can somehow get consignments onto the continent. And as one wry note has it, not a word was passed about how exactly the goods moved. The lesson sets like iron. Logistics is finance by other means. This is where the family's future pattern appears in miniature. Move value of any kind, cash, specie, securities, or goods, legally when you can, discreetly when you must. The profit isn't just on the loom. It's between warehouses and ports, in the rhythm of letters and riders, in the small spreads that only exist when you're early. War shocks Hesse Castle. The Elector's treasure needs safety. Mayer becomes custodian and agent. Legends multiply around this episode, but the sober archival picture is clear. Part of the fortune, including chests of documents and assets, is entrusted to the Rothschilds. Other portions are handled through the Elector's advisor Buderus and dispersed. The family safeguards, deploys, accounts, and, crucially, keeps the client when the Elector returns. In finance, trust that survives a regime change becomes a mandate you can scale. Rothschildarchive.org. At the same time in Frankfurt, Grand Duke Dalberg's regime ushers in a step toward Jewish emancipation. In 1811, equal civil status is granted, tied to a 440,000 golden payment. The Rothschilds help facilitate the finance around this arrangement. It's the kind of civic transaction that leaves fingerprints in ledgers, as well as in law. The broader texture is messy, rights granted, narrowed, then restored. But 1811 marks a real hinge. By 1809, London becomes Nathan's center of gravity. It is the world's clearinghouse for bills and bullion. The habits he learned in Manchester formalize into a system. Lines of correspondence, couriers who beat state dispatches, coded letters, and a desk that lives on spreads. Commission spreads, FX spreads, credit spreads, all stitched together by timing. This is the era where, as you highlighted, the family's communications network creates a decisive advantage, and their deal-making helps create the international bond market in its modern form contemporaries notice. American magazines marvel at a financial wire drawn from Vienna to Paris, Paris to London, London to Washington. In the journalism of the day, you find breathless lines, a Europe where no power seems able to make war without the family's consent, the knowing hyperbole that there will be no war because the Rothschilds do not want it. The poetry is even sharper. Heine's famous line that money is the god of our time and Rothschild is his prophet. Take the rhetoric with salt. Keep the kernel. When you can move state money between states, you sometimes accelerate or impede what states attempt to do. 1810. Mayor binds his sons into a 10-year, non-cancelable partnership. Unity formalized. 1812. His will is blunt about control. Sons inside, daughters, and sons-in-law outside. The practical doctrine that grows from these paper facts is the one you've underlined repeatedly. Act in concert, protect the name, avoid greedy trades. He recommends fraternal concord as a source of blessing. And when tempers do flare, as they will, the old man's rule is a brake on fracture. Decades later, the brothers still remember the dying commandment, and they are not clones. Amschel is cautious and yearns for quiet. Karl is anxious and would be content with little enough to live. Nathan dominates by force of will and nerve, but the partnership never collapses into a dictatorship. The center holds because unity itself is risk management. A hard family maxim floats up from your notes. If you cannot make yourself loved, make yourself feared. It reads harshly now. In the survival calculus of 1810's finance, it meant be a counterparty whose word and teeth are both respected. By 1814 to 1815, the brothers are orchestrating intergovernmental transfers, Britain to allies, allies to creditors, large sums recoloring the map. How do they actually make money? Commissions on the transfer, sometimes 0 to win the mandate, sometimes near 8%. Foreign exchange moves, buy here, sell there. Volatility becomes a revenue line. Credit spread, front cash when states are illiquid and get paid for the risk. As you highlighted, each transfer has at least 2, often 3 ways to earn. Thin fees become solid returns when timing and FX join the base commission. And in the absence of early competition, the family's terms are attractive enough to win deal flow. Here then comes the legend that swallows the nuance. Waterloo. The tale says Nathan had the news first, traded brilliantly, and minted the fortune overnight. The reality in the archive is messier and more human. Premature information is often disbelieved. Early pricing can be wrong for infuriatingly long stretches. In June and into September 1815, the brothers encounter a severe cash flow crisis. Competition on the continent increases. Arbitrage tightens. Salomon, echoing their father, snaps at Nathan's unclear letters and disorderly handling of moving pieces. The year ends with the sober truth you noted. Their huge profits in 1814 to 1815 were more mysterious and hazardous than the clean Waterloo myth allows. And yet, they survived the turbulence, because systems can outlive bad weeks. Couriers, correspondence, hedges, and credit lines don't make you omniscient, but they make you resilient.